It is a journey that will take us 4,181 miles from the start to where we finish in 150 days. It is the college football season, which, whether you're watching or not, you shouldn't be watching, you should be watching us, is officially underway with an appetizer slate of games today. And there's a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of changes, a lot of new faces, new places. It is the great thing that we love on Saturdays. It is college football. Welcome in. We're happy you're here with us. Feel free to comment along if you're watching along. We're going to take you through the world of college football today, top to bottom. Finish it with some national championship picks, as well as some Heismans. Get into the nuts and bolts of what's going on in the college football world. But of course, we're always in a spread formation. I'll go to the guy in the middle today as we move things around. TJ, what is going on, my brother?
Happy Saturday, Mike. This is, we can't call it week 0, but it's week 0. And we've been waiting for this day for a long time. So let's go. Let's get it going.
Yeah, absolutely. Rocking the Nevada football shirt there in the center. And of course, Mr. Northeast rocking a UConn soccer shirt because he's always on brand here. Vegas Mac, what's up, brother?
Not much. Here we go. College football, where every snap is a story. There we go.
Every snap is a story, and every time I try and get something to Mac on time through Amazon, it's still not there. So bear with us if Mac's microphone kind of cuts out here and there. We've got that problem almost fixed, but not really sure what I'm paying for Prime for. But guys, a lot of changes in the college football world, and I think a lot of excitement. Last year, we saw the first edition of the 12-team playoff, and it led to some interesting stuff. It led to some colossal blowouts and boring games at the beginning, led to a little bit of controversy, not as much as we've seen in seasons prior. But off the top of your head, and I'll start in the middle, TJ, college football this season, what are you excited about? What are you concerned about? What jumps off the page to you?
I'm really excited to see if the Big 19 can continue its run of national championships. I'm excited to see if this is the year. We talk about it in the pros with, or I talk about it in the pros with the Chiefs. Is this finally the year that your boy Dan Lanning breaks through at Oregon and finally wins the title? What I'm not very excited about is the playoff itself. I think it's terrible, and I will continue to say that it's terrible. And all we want to do is make it more terrible with more teams. That is a horrendous idea.
Absolutely. Vegas Mac, first thoughts, first jump off the page, if you can follow horrendous, as TJ emphasized there.
I mean, it's always that fun time of the year. I mean, there's a lot of teams that feel they have a chance not only to win a championship, but to maybe get into the playoff, and that's the biggest thing. As far as just the overall state of college football, it's kind of interesting. I mean, this isn't a shocking statement to anybody, but in preparing for this, it's not like the NFL. It's like every team that I looked at, it's like 19 players in the transfer portal, 20 players in the transfer. I mean, sound like an old fogey, but it used to be back in the day where
you are. So.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, it's kind of fun. Like you would know at least the players on your team. I mean, professionally, we would always, you'd have a very little change, but definitely in college, you would definitely know the players on your team. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are going to go to game number 1 and they're going to need to buy a roster because they're not going to know who number 37 is or who number 41 is, because it's just such a change. And I guess that basically just wraps up, the state of college football. It's in such a state of change.
Yeah, and just to catch you up on the time, since you are an old man,
Thanks,
those roster cards probably come in digital download form now. I couldn't tell you the last time I went to a game or cared enough to get an actual roster card. But you're right, though. I mean, you're absolutely right, and I think this is where we start to see the divide, Mac. And you and I have had this conversation several times. This is where we see the divide amongst college football fans. Is you went from, oh, be loyal. Well, if a coach isn't going to be loyal, why the hell should the player be loyal? Let's throw that argument out the window. But I think that is the big divide now, is there's a lot of people that are kind of turned off by the fact that, and we're going to talk about a couple of these guys very specifically today who have they're on their third or fourth school already, Mac.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things. The other thing, and it goes to TJ's point about the playoff. Oh my gosh,
hell was that?
They're coming for us. I don't know.
I have the window open and the door it's unseasonable weather today. I'll say that.
All right.
Go
ahead, Mac.
The college football is now, it's kind of funny to say this. I shouldn't say just now, but it's becoming about who has the most money, because that's what it's taking to get players there. You're not, it's not the recruiting, although that's a little bit of it. It's, even though you may have the brand, I'm looking at maybe going to Alabama and maybe Michigan and Ohio State, but maybe this school over here is going to give me an extra $1 million. I'm now going to go play for this school because they're going to give me $1 million. So I mean, again, that's it. We've got guys that are staying. I mean, so you see guys have, like you said, they've played somewhere 4 years and now they're on their fifth year. It's very college football right now. Very interesting. It's a lot to dissect.
Yeah, very interesting game going on in Manhattan, Ireland right now. 7-7 Iowa State in Kansas State. Farmageddon that we farmed out to Ireland here, but this game has been sponsored by Sara Lee so far. Kansas State with another fumble. That is now the fourth total turnover in about a quarter and a half right now. So obviously some early nerves in that game. The field is pretty slick out there. And as TJ, you mentioned, shopping, we mentioned this before we came on to start the show. Shopping, one of the better rivalries, one of the older rivalries in college football, over to Ireland here. But it's been an interesting one so far. I've been watching it. I've got it on over here at the corner of the command center, but 4 turnovers in a quarter and a quarter.
But that's what you're going to get, right? This is like the first couple of games are like preseason games, especially with all the roster turnovers now. This is what you're going to see. So the quality of the first games is not going to be very good.
No, not at all. And we'll see how that rolls over to the other games that are on the schedule today. Some fun ones. I mean, nobody that's going to blow the doors off for you and overly wow you, but it's football, man, and we got back to this point. I'm really interested to actually see Frank Reich's Stanford Cardinal under direction of General Andrew Luck, the general manager, as they're on the island to take on Hawaii tonight. I'm looking forward to that one. Kansas reopens the booth, the remodeled booth against Fresno State today. So again, nothing that's going to wow you, and expect the scoreboard to explode in Las Vegas with Idaho State and UNLV. Let's talk about the season that lies ahead, guys. And there's last year we saw this new format. There can be some flies in the ointment. It allows for some of the smaller schools to still have a seat at the table, a place at the table. And let's look at some of those non-power conference teams that go in. I'm going to start with you, Mac, because I think TJ and I might be on the same general wavelength here. And as per usual, for those of you joining the show for the first time, usually none of us can get to Mac's wavelength. So, Mac, give me that one non-power conference school. And when I say that, we're talking about the P4s. Give me that one non-P4 school that you think is going to jump into the playoff this year.
I'm glad you said wave, because Tulane is the team that see what I did there already. I think Tulane, and I'll give you a couple of reasons. One, we'll start on the defensive side. They have 8 starters returning on their defense. Also, their schedule is kind of interesting. They have a home game against Northwestern. They have a home game against Duke, which are games that they could win. They do have to go on the road to Ole Miss. They don't have to sweep those 3 games, but if they go 2-1 in those games, they can easily have if they have a good conference season with those 2 wins and a good showing against Ole Miss. This is a team that could definitely get in.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people looking at Tulane this year as one of those teams. I mean, T, I'll let you expand on this point because I know you pay a lot more attention to this particular conference of football, at least for another, year or two until Boise disappears. As Mac literally gets up for a second here, and in the lower right corner, you can see the Boise State blanket in the background. But for me, I think it is Boise State simply because the path is too easy for them. And they do play Notre Dame. I mean, it's not like they've got cakewalks, but Notre Dame's just going to do nothing but help them. And I don't really see any competition within conference, which is usually the case. But I'll let you kind of expand on that point with Boise.
No, you're exactly right. Interesting, before the Notre Dame game, they have a home game against Appalachian State, which is going to be really good. But yeah, the conference should be a cakewalk. They get all the tough ones. They get all the tough ones at home. They go at San Diego State, but San Diego State was not very good last year. But sometimes they surprise down at Snapdragon. But yeah, Boise looks like they're the team. They're going to be the team again. And look, they earned it. They have earned it over the last 20 years. They have built that program to be exactly what they want it to be. And they're going to move into the Pac-8 or whatever it is. And they're probably going to be good there. Too bad the level of competition will be about the same. It's a lateral move, in my opinion. But they've earned it. They've done everything. As much as I can't stand it, they've done everything the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I do kind of agree with Mac's point. I looked kind of hard at Tulane when trying to pick my fly in the ointment, if you will. I think with the game against App State, as you just mentioned, the game against Notre Dame, that just helps them, especially if they cruise all the way through. And we'll see what happens. One thing that I do like about this format is it gives us an opportunity to see some things that we don't normally get to see. I mean, could you imagine a scenario where Oklahoma has to play at Texas and they're not playing in the Cotton Bowl? You can imagine a scenario where, let's say, a Florida gets in and Florida has to play Georgia at Athens, or vice versa, where Georgia has to come to the Swamp, which would be an absolute friggin' scene. So we'll see how this all lays out. But let's start in the conference that spans the entire country, boys. From coast to coast, the Atlantic All-Coast Conference. And we're going to go through, and as we go through these conferences, feel free to comment along if you're watching along. Give us your national championship picks, your Heisman picks. If your team's in one of these conferences, you let us know what your thoughts are. But we're going to give you a team that could surprise, a team that's overrated, and the team that we think is going to win each conference, as well as our picks to go to the playoffs out of each conference. So as we start in the ACC, I'm going to start in a place that probably would surprise both of you as my team that could surprise this year. And I think it's Florida State. And it's twofold for me with Florida State because they can't possibly get any worse. They blew out everybody but Mike Norvell. They bring in new coordinators, Tony White, who came over from Nebraska as their defensive coordinator. And this is kind of the thing, and you guys both kind of alluded to it off the top. When you build a team that's almost built entirely through the transfer portal, if your team's not doing very well, there's a lot of quit factor in there. And I hate using that word, but I think in this day and age of college football where guys are getting paid and they're like, hey, I'm not going to risk getting hurt on this trash-ass football team. So it's always a risk, but Florida State had to do what they had to do. They bring in Tommy Castellanos, and I think this is interesting because Gus Malzahn is there. Castellanos committed to Malzahn, spent some time with him, went up to Boston College, did not mesh whatsoever with Bill O'Brien. He has been doing a lot of this, but guys at Florida State do this all the time. And then at wide receiver, they brought in transfers, Deuce Robinson, namely from USC, Squirrel White, all-name team from Tennessee. So they've got the pieces there, and I think they could surprise because I think a lot of people are completely overlooking them. And the interesting thing is, after week one, we're either going to hear, well, Alabama's overrated as all hell, or, hey, Florida State sucks again because they play each other in week one. Again, we'll remind people in the college football landscape, especially now, patience is a virtue here. I can't wait to see that game, but I think Florida State that's my surprise team out of the ACC because they can't possibly get any worse, and I think they're being overlooked right now. Let's start with T in the middle.
So my team that I think can surprise, I don't know if it's going to be much of a surprise to you, but I think it's SMU. They return Kevin Jennings. They return pretty much all their linebackers and secondary. They have Miami and Louisville at home. They do have to go to Death Valley, but the schedule with Louisville and Miami at home, I think that's going to be very helpful for them. And then they got the usual suspects in there with they have to go to Sleep Forest and they have Syracuse at home though. They got to go to TCU. That's always huge. But I think SMU now they may or may not have deserved to go to the playoff last year. They got waxed against Penn State. It was awful for them, but that's a game that that Rhett Lashley took that game. He filed it in his memory and he's like, we can build off of this. Even though it was a devastating loss, we can build off of this for future success.
Mac, surprise team in the ACC.
Surprise team is Louisville. They're going to have another new quarterback, Miller Moss, but they've got their head coach. I think he's kind of like the quarterback whisperer. Jeff Brom's able to do tremendous things with his quarterbacks. Not just that, from an offensive standpoint, they're really, really good. They got two good wide receivers. And I think they have, and I'm going to allude to this a lot, and we'll take a little bit later, two of the better running backs, and Isaac Brown and Duke Watson, not in the country. Not in the conference, but in the country. And so the one thing that I don't like about it is their schedule. Their road schedule, they have to go to Pitt, Miami, Virginia Tech, and SMU, but they do have Clemson at home. So again, we're talking about a surprise team. If you can find a way, we don't know about Miami. We don't know how good they're going to be. You can steal that one and maybe be able to take that game at home against Clemson. This could be our surprise team. And Miller Moss, a lot of, hate towards him a little bit last year too, right, TJ? But was it really him, or was it a product of USC, the coaching staff, the situation there at USC, or was it, the quarterback himself? And like I said, he's going to a place where they've had success developing quarterbacks. So maybe this is a good spot for him. So, we'll see.
I think it was a lot of things for USC. I think they were had growing pains in the new conference. I think it was the travel issue, and I don't think Miller Moss is very good.
Yeah, and a good point there that you make, Mac, with the development of the quarterbacks. Whether we're talking about Aiden O'Connell, Jack Plummer, Tyler Shuck, Brom seems to get a lot out of what you would see on the surface as a little. And I just mentioned three guys that, are at the next level. And whether they're players at the next level, we've seen Aiden O'Connell a lot. Tyler Shuck probably gets a good opportunity this year in New Orleans. But I think, that's a very underrated aspect of what Brom does.
Here's the thing. Moss is now, we talk about guys that have played now. This is his fifth year, so he's got the experience. So there's that. He did complete 64% of his passes last year. So, I get it, but, if you're having to bring somebody who's been through college football now for 4 or 5 years, it's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, let's go to some overrated teams in the conference. And Mac, you just mentioned my overrated team, and it's Miami. We've seen the song and dance here, and I know Carson Beck's numbers in the SEC and blah, 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 blah. There's a lot difference there's a big difference. English, again, is a functional language. It's hard for me to utilize sometimes. There's a lot bigger difference in the distractions off the field in Athens, Georgia, and in South Beach, Florida. And Carson Beck is also coming off of the UCL tear. He's been cleared for full football activities. The one advantage that he does have is that might be one of the better offensive line groups in the entire country, but they lost their top 6 pass catchers. And, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out that when you lose your top 6 pass catchers, it's going to be hard. Now they have CJ Daniels, who transferred from LSU. They've got Tony Johnson, who transferred from Cincinnati. That's a lot of talent to replace. Their defense last year was average at best. They're going to start right away, as we know, next weekend with Notre Dame. They play Florida. They're at Florida State. So there's a lot to replace for Miami, and I don't have the confidence that everybody else seems to have in Carson Beck, TJ.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Carson Beck. This is such a money grab for him. It's not even a joke. But I mean, hey,
good for him.
It is. Yeah, good for him. Go get your bag. I'm with you though. I don't think Miami's going to be that great.
Give me your overrated team, Mac, and whatever you were just thinking there. Sorry.
He said he did lose his girlfriend though, so I mean, there's that.
Stay out of my DMs, bro.
Mine, I put Georgia Tech because here's the thing. It's like every year we hear, oh, Georgia Tech's going to surprise people. Georgia Tech's going to do this. I mean, let's just be honest. Georgia Tech seems like the little engine that can't. They'll have that one maybe surprise 3 quarters in the game to try to upset somebody, but they just can never get over the top. I just never. It's like they don't scare me. Georgia Tech doesn't scare me. I mean, maybe it's they got too many nicknames. I don't know. It just but they just offensively don't scare me. They always seem like they have a decent defense. But I mean, we know what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball and run the ball and run the ball, and then they're going to run the ball again. They're just not a team that scares me. But every year, it always seems like there's somebody's like, oh, watch out for Georgia Tech. Well, why?
Yeah, exactly. Give me your overrated team in the ACC.
It's Mac's favorite team, Louisville. I think it's a downgrade at quarterback. Miller Moss has not played more than 9 games in a season. How do you expect him to take you to the promised land? I do understand that Louisville has great running backs, but I think this is a downgrade overall on offense, and I don't think it's going to get him through. I don't think Brom's going to have the magic beans here.
All right, let's go to our conference champion and our playoff teams here. And I think this might be a little uniformed answer, but also having to remember that Notre Dame is in this mix as well. Technically not in the conference, but pretty much play an ACC schedule. So for me, I'm going to go, no doubt about it, with Clemson to win the conference here. And a lot of people are high on Clemson and wondering if they're back. Well, Cade Klubnik's a big reason for that. But it's Wesco, Moore, and Antonio Williams. Those wide receivers, that trio of wide receivers is pretty damn good there. So I've got Clemson winning the conference. I also have Notre Dame in my playoff as 2 of my 12 teams. Mac, how about your conference champ and playoff participants?
I mean, it was fun to see Clemson back in it last year. I mean, I think there's no doubt that they are the class of the ACC. I mean, they should be able to take that. I love Notre Dame, and I love Notre Dame for a couple of reasons. Number one, I mean, I think from a talent standpoint, they're really, really good. But I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, their season comes down to 2 weeks, week 1 and week 2. They play at Miami. If they take care of that, the next week they're home against Texas A&M. The rest of the schedule, quite honestly, is dog. It really is. I mean, there's Boise State in there, but the rest of it, there's nothing stopping them the rest of the way. I mean, NC State, USC, BC, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford. I mean, so really, it's those first 2 weeks for me. And if they win both those games, I think they'll be undefeated. Again, I'm not making fun of their schedule. The schedule is what it is. They're a talented team, and I think this was part of we had this conversation last year. Well, Notre Dame didn't play anybody. Yeah, you know what? And they also got to the national championship game as well. So I'm not sleeping on Notre Dame. They're really good, talented running backs, great offensive line. I mean, great coaching staff. Notre Dame is the real deal, even though their schedule may not show it.
Yeah, and CJ Carr, I think a lot of people are expecting big stuff out of, and he did edge out Kenny Minchey for the starting quarterback job. You mentioned the running backs. Jeremiah Love might be the best running back in all of college football, and they have arguably the best secondary in college football. So with a soft schedule, I mean, yeah, that just backs your point. T, what do you got? Playoffs and conference champion out of the ACC?
It's just one more thing there. Notre Dame has like all of the benefits of playing in a conference without any of the downsides here. So they really
Very
have a
true.
sweet deal. I've got Clemson winning the whole thing. I think that they're the best team. I love Cade Klubnik. I think he's going to be great. I think there are some awards for him in the future. Yeah, I like Clemson. I like Notre Dame to make the playoff. And interestingly, Clemson never leaves the Eastern time zone this year in their schedule. They travel the second least amount of miles in the entire conference, just over 3,000 miles for the entire season. Meanwhile, just to put that in perspective, their conference mate, Stanford, 23,000 miles across a total of 30 time zones. And they also have the worst odds to win the conference.
Yeah, for a school full of smart people, it was a dumbass decision to go to the ACC. Let's move on, guys, to the Big 12. Yes, the Big 12, a conference that has not had a repeat champion but one time. Oklahoma did it. Arizona State has that dubious distinction this year to try and be a repeat champion. And a lot of eyeballs on the Sun Devils and what Kenny Dillingham's doing. Let's talk about our surprise teams, and I'll change up the order here. We'll go to Vegas Mac to get us started with his surprise team in the Big 12.
The Red Raiders of Texas Tech, and it's one of the things that I talked about at the beginning. It's money, and they spent a lot of money on transfers. Let's start with Quentin Joyner, getting him from USC. That, I mean, again, there's just a ton of it right there. And so that's one of the things that'll be interesting to see. We mentioned, just because you have all this money and all these transfers, it doesn't mean that you're going to have success because, again, they have to gel. Again, I'm just going to say it just because of where he went. One of the receivers they got, Roy Alexander. Where did he play last year? Of course, the great football powerhouse of Incarnate Word. I mean, how many times can we get Incarnate Word in today will be an interesting thing.
Cam Ward went to Incarnate Word too.
There you go. I'm telling you. I think Morton at quarterback is a little bit of a question. I mean, we do know that their defense wasn't great last year. A little bit of a question mark there. But listen, again, a lot of transfers in, a lot of excitement with this Texas Tech team. I think they could be a surprise in the Big 12.
TJ, give me a surprise team in the Big 12.
I'm going with the Baylor Bears, bringing back Sawyer Robertson this year at quarterback, 6 straight to end last season. They looked like they started to put it all together finally at the end. Baylor opens up against Auburn and they get them at home. That could be the springboard to a fantastic year in Waco.
Yeah, I think Baylor's a team that a lot of people are looking at. My surprise team shouldn't be a surprise, but off of what they were doing last year, I'm going to classify them as a surprise, and that's the Utah Utes. And I don't believe there's any way in hell that a Kyle Whittingham team is down 2 years in a row. They bring over Devin Dampier, who is an incredible athlete at quarterback. Now, Dampier's got to be a little bit better throwing the football, but the athleticism that he brings to the table, I think, is a fascinating development for what Utah's offense could be. You've got 2 first-round picks on that offensive line in Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu, and the interior of that offensive line is really, really good. And they're experienced, and that's one thing that is hard to get in college football is experience with a cohesive unit. And, when you look at the running back and wide receiver positions, they brought in 3 transfers at each position, mainly Ryan Davis, who transfers over from New Mexico with Dampier, and their offensive coordinator this year, Jason Beck, who comes over. And again, I can't foresee a situation that I see a Kyle Whittingham team down for 2 years in a row here. And when I look at their schedule on top of that, they open in Pasadena next week against UCLA, but most of their tough games are at home. They play Texas Tech at home, they play Arizona State at home, they play Colorado at home, they play Kansas State at home. They do have to go to Baylor and to Kansas late in the year, but I'm really expecting a lot out of Whittingham's group this year, and I think they're going to be a pain in the ass no matter who they play, and especially if they get into the postseason and get into that college football playoff. Mac, let's go overrated teams and give me your overrated team. And feel free, guys, to comment along. No, we're not going to talk about the damn squirrel that was the most important thing that happened at Yankee Stadium last night. But feel free to comment along if you're watching along. We appreciate you. Kansas State, Iowa State 7-7 as they're closing in on halftime. Overrated team in the Big 12, Mac.
I'm going with BYU. And for a couple of reasons. One, they lost a lot on their defense. Of the 16 guys who saw a lot of time last year, over 200 snaps, they're only returning 2 of those guys. They do have a good offensive line. I will give them that. Questions at quarterback, and their schedule's kind of weird. They play 3 teams that are ranked like 88th or worse. Then they play 3 teams between like the middle of the pack, between like 50 and 60, and then they play 4 that are 32 or better. So, I mean, they kind of have this weird schedule. I mean, I can see it where, they're going to win a couple of games, they're going to look really, really good, and then all of a sudden they're going to come back down to earth. I always like BYU. It's a great school to go to watch a football game, great views and everything. It's tough to play there. But I just don't think they're going to be as good as some people think this year.
The overrated Big 12.
I'm going to stay in the Beehive State. Your Utah Utes, I think, are overrated.
Shut your mouth.
I can't be. Look, I agree with you with Coach Whittingham. You don't expect them to be down for long, but I just can't with this Utah team right now, especially after the last couple of seasons. I hope I'm wrong. I really do, because I like Utah. I think their coach is probably, well, in my opinion, second best coach in the conference. But I can't get over how poorly the last 3 years have gone. Luckily, Cam Rising is nowhere near this program right now, so that's good news for them.
I think T just went through and made sure that he picked an overrated team that counteracted a team that we thought could surprise Mac. I think that was his strategy
sabotage.
Here.
Complete sabotage.
My overrated team is a team I'm literally watching right now, and it's Kansas State. And I love Avery Johnson. I love what he brings to the table. He's already ripped off a couple of good runs, one long one early in this game. But I think with Kansas State, when I look at it, they have 2 returning starters on the offensive line. They brought in 4 transfers on the offensive line. And I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock into what I've seen so far today, but this offensive line is already proving what I thought could be a problem for them, and that is their offensive line. And there were questions on their offensive line last year, and they got that group kind of gelled. But again, you've got 4 transfers and only 2 returning starters. And if Avery Johnson takes the next step, and we've seen it especially in college football, I think even more than the NFL, when you have a quarterback who's really, really dynamic in college football, that can totally change the landscape for you. We can go back to, Cam Newton. We can go back to Tim Tebow, and I'm not going to go through the whole list. There's plenty of names we could add to that. But it's a lot of pressure on Avery Johnson to really leap up to the next level. And I think with, again, what I've seen out of this offensive line, and I'm not going to put a ton of stock into tonight. They get to get a couple of games against North Dakota and Army before they travel to Arizona on September 12th to kind of get in sync with each other. But I think this offensive line can be an offensive disaster for Kansas State. Mac, let's look at your conference champ and your playoff teams out of the Big 12.
Well, my conference champ, I have my fingers crossed on this one. Excuse me. I really hope it's ASU. I want it to be ASU. I mean, they have the talent to be champions again. Like you said, there hasn't been a repeat champion in quite some time. But this team is really, really stacked. Quarterback's back, receivers are back. And Kenny is just, I mean, we're lucky we're here. So we, in the state, we hear a lot about ASU, and Kenny's just done so many great things, not only with this program, but, for the university and throughout the state. My fingers are crossed. I say that because it's the history of ASU that worries me. The history of ASU football says one good season, and then we don't see you again for about a decade. And then we're going to come back and give you another good season. So Kenny knows the history. I mean, he's an ASU guy. I mean, and again, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's here. He's solid. He's really going to change that program. But it's just like anything else. When you've seen it time and time and time and again, you just kind of fall back into that. So I think it's ASU as conference champions. I I just don't see another team. I think they're by far the best team in this conference.
I'm going to hold my thoughts. T, give me your conference champ and your playoff teams out of the Big 12.
I'm going to give Mac a virtual high five right here because I got ASU as well. Kenny Del Taco Dillingham has me wanting to run through a wall for him. I love Sam Levitt. I love the fact that they're getting everybody back except for Cam Scatterby. I hope he has a great career in New York, but this team is loaded, and I just love. I think I called him this before, Mike. He reminds me so much of Eric Musselman, and I think that's a very fair and very apt comparison. He is all about everything ASU. He wants to build this program to be a dynasty in the Big 12, and I think it starts with back-to-back titles.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting, and I'll say this: it's about time people in this town, in the greater Phoenix metro area, even though I'm way the hell away from there, but it's about time people in this town had something to root for when it came to football season that was exciting to root for. I posed the question the other day on one of our videos on our social channels at Mike Arana Show, everywhere but Snapchat. T, why are we not on Snapchat for those new to us today?
Because Snapchat sucks and we're not 12.
Exactly. What would Arizona State's offense look like without Cam Scatterby? And they return a lot of people. And I love Sam Levitt. I think Sam Levitt is a trendy Heisman pick that has some good value. I think whenever he does leave, he is going to be a top draft pick. He's got a big-time arm, and he's the perfect quarterback for Kenny Dillingham. A lot of pressure is going to be on Kanye Udo, who transferred in from Army, 1,100 yards, 10 rushing touchdowns. And let's get this out in front of the horse, if you will. Kanye Udo is not Cam Scatterby, and they're not asking him to be. But history is not on Arizona State's side, as Mac mentioned. And I think Dillingham's going to build a team that is going to be a consistent power in the Big 12. I have no doubts about that. I also think this conference beats the holy hell out of each other. And a lot of the time, that can lead to not the best thing for this current playoff format. ASU was 5-0 in games of 7 points or less last year. One of those games flips, and they don't get the opportunity that they did. And credit to them that they got through it. That being said, with the way this schedule shakes out, and I see a lot of ASU's tough games are on the road. Baylor, Utah, Iowa State, Colorado late in the year, whatever you want to make out of that Colorado team. So when it comes down to playoff teams in a conference champion for me, guys, it's Utah, and that's it. And I think it's because this conference beats the living hell out of each other. I'm literally watching it right now. Iowa State and Kansas State, 7-7 halftime. Make what you want out of that in a week 1 game. I think Dillingham and the Devils will be in the mix. History is not on their side from a conference standpoint. It's a conference that never gives you repeat champions for a reason, and that's because these teams like to beat the holy hell out of each other. Go ahead and send the firing squad at me since you guys are on the ASU bandwagon here.
I'm going to send Cam Rising out for a 7th year of eligibility. How's that?
Oh, jeez. Between TJ ranting on Cam Rising and Caleb Williams, Caleb Love too. I mean, you can go on a rant on him.
I'm saving.
Am I wrong, Mac?
I just don't see it. I look at ASU has too many horses. They lose Cam. I get that. But when you have good programs, and I think ASU, we can give them a title of good programs, you can replace a running back like Cam. You can. With Sam Levitt, he can distribute the ball with the receivers that he has. That's going to open up that running game. I think they can plug people in there. I really truly do. I'm surprised Utah. I I'll be interested to see. You've now opened my eyes. I've got my eyes on Utah right now.
Well, we'll see on
think
October.
I think part of it though too is just last year they looked so bad. They were so bad last year. It's like I don't see where
ASU has looked so bad for over a decade.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, I know. But
if we want to use that argument,
I know, but I'm just saying I don't know where Utah's made these great improvements from last year.
oh, you watch Devin Dampier and you'll answer.
It was
the
addition by
question.
subtraction.
True.
It was addition by subtraction for Utah. Get
True.
Rising off the roster. I guess we'll find out on October 11th though, because they're going to meet relatively early.
Yeah, they do play pretty early this year, and I think a lot of people there's going to be a lot of eyes on Utah next weekend when they open the season with UCLA, because UCLA, interesting team that we'll not get to because they're probably not going to factor in any of our conversation about the Big 77 conference. Which, what a segue! That's where we're headed next, the Big Ten Conference. And as Mac has pointed this out on some of our videos on our social channels over the last couple of weeks, is this the year? So the question is posed. We saw a Michigan team that couldn't get over the hump. They win a national championship. We saw an Ohio State team that couldn't get over the hump. They win a national championship. Does that mean it's time for James Franklin to get over the hump and win a national championship? And I think when we look at this conference as a whole, before we get into our nuts and bolts here, guys, everybody's high on Penn State. And I think there is good reason for that, for at least a little bit. And that's because out of the four major contenders in this conference, and that's obviously Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, they're the only one that returns their starting quarterback in Drew Aller. They've got Singleton and Allen back. But Penn State hasn't beaten Ohio State since 2016, the last time that they won the Big Ten Conference. Mm-hmm. And again, history seems to tell me a little bit of the story there. So before we get into our surprises and our overrated teams and our playoff teams here, let's get the first thing that comes to mind when you're talking about the Big Ten. I'll start in the middle with T.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is the travel that some of these teams have to go through is unreal. And I think that's going back to Miller Moss and Louisville now. I think that's what killed the Trojans last year, was having to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Look, I went to New York this summer and I was I spent a week there and went back and forth, and I was exhausted. And I had a week to recover. How do we expect these players to go fly out there on a Friday, play a game on Saturday, and then fly right back on Saturday night, and then do it again 2 weeks later and do it again? I think that's an unreasonable request. And I know all these players want to play in the NFL, and that's nice. And, oh, yeah, the NFL does this too. Well, actually, they don't, because what they do is when they have back-to-backs across the country, they stay across the country. So let's not kid ourselves here. The travel is a huge issue.
I was laughing because of Mick Cronin's quote about how many times during basketball season he saw the Statue of Liberty last year. Mac, first thing that pops off your head when you think about the Big 77.
This is the Conference of Football Champions. Let's just be honest. Here's the thing about the Big Ten, and this isn't new. It's their style of play. And I think it's their style of play that helps them come playoff time. You have all these fancy offensive this and gadgets this and this, that. Big Ten football is known for playing tough defense, running on the grass and throwing the ball a little bit. And I just think come playoff time, that helps. They play a playoff formula of football throughout the entire year. And I just think it helps, especially their top teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to put to that. Let's start with our surprise teams, and I'm going to start in the middle this time with TJ.
I'm going with Illinois. I thought they were very impressive last year for a team that I expected absolutely zero out of. They were great as far as I'm concerned. Now they have an experienced roster. Now, can you do it again? Right? Can you make strides in 2025 and maybe replace Indiana if in the playoff, if things go right?
Matt, give me your surprise team in the Big Ten.
I'm going to go with Nebraska. And I think I don't know. I last year I kind of got on the Nebraska train, and it was an interesting ride. I like them. You know, I look at here's why I look at their schedule, and there's nothing on their schedule that scares me, except for having to play at Penn State towards the end of November. I mean, their conference schedule is, home against Michigan State, at Maryland, at Minnesota. They got Northwestern and USC at home. They have to go to UCLA and then at Penn State and then Iowa. I think this is a schedule from a schedule standpoint with, of course, Pat Mahomes Jr. at quarterback with another year of experience. I think this Nebraska team could surprise some people.
How did I know when we started talking about this that you were going to reference that? My surprise team, and Mac, you're going to love this one, is the Iowa Hawkeyes. And a lot of it is because,
their uniforms are like the Steelers. I know. I say it. Go ahead and say it.
Because they're the king of 3-0 games.
You're right.
Right, they were. And they went out and they got a stud at quarterback, Mark Gronkowski. And a lot of people probably not familiar with him, and that's okay. You're going to get familiar with him real quick. And I was trying to think of an accurate way to describe Mark Gronkowski for the people that hadn't seen him, and I couldn't figure it out. Shout out to Mike Calabrese from the Action Network. He decided to do the legwork for me, and this is from him, and I'm going to read this verbatim from him because I think this is the best way to describe Mark Gronkowski to people that haven't seen him. Russell Wilson, uber efficient dual threat passer, transferred to Wisconsin, elevated the Badgers, the way their ball control offense to previously unseen heights back in 2011. Similar skill set, and while the ball doesn't fly out of his hand in the exact same way, he'll be efficient. He'll be the kind of guy that you need at Iowa to play quarterback. And you've always got an offensive line that's ridiculous at Iowa. You've got two returning all-conference players in Logan Jones and Jennings Dunker on that offensive line. My only question with Iowa is, did they have the receivers to really utilize Gronkowski's skill set to the best? They don't have to play Ohio State. They play Oregon and Penn State in Iowa, and that's a huge advantage from them. If they find a way to upset Oregon or Penn State at home, that's going to go a long way for what happens there. So I think the potential, and when we're talking about a surprise team, that's what you're looking at. The potential is there for Iowa to be a surprise in the conference. Overrated teams, and this is always a fun conversation when it comes to the Big Ten. TJ, I'll start with you.
Caleb Williams. Oh, wait, that's next week.
Next week.
Michigan.
Tuesday.
Michigan is the most overrated team. And it's hands down. I'm looking at previews that other people have put out for the Big Ten, and Michigan is averaging in the 3rd and 4th rank. You've got to be crazy. Bryce Underwood has played 0 snaps in college football right now. 0. You know what me and him have in common? We played the same amount of snaps in college football. This is such a ridiculous. It's so and I'll Michigan is so on my nerves right now. Every time I try to get information on Michigan football, the first thing that comes up is how much Bryce Underwood is getting paid. And I think that tells you everything about what's going to happen with Michigan this year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that share that same thought. Matt, give me your overrated team in the Big Ten.
I know this is going to take a little bite out of you, Mike, but I'm going with the Oregon Ducks.
You son of a bitch.
I know. Again, here's the thing. You've got now your third starting quarterback in 3 years. They lost a lot of guys on their offense. Their defense is kind of retooling. I don't think the schedule gives them, any favors as well. I mean, I think Dan Lanning is a great coach. There's no doubt about it. I just think that this is going to be. I don't think they're going to have a bad year. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to say they're going to be a 500 team, but I just don't see them being a contender in the conference this year.
No faith in Dante Moore. What is wrong with you? We'll get to Oregon, I'm sure, again in a minute. My overrated team, it's Ohio State. the Ohio State. Sorry, didn't want to offend anybody out there since Ohio State fans come crawling out under their rocks like Dodger fans do.
You've been holding that in for a while, haven't you?
I have. That one, I think I bit my tongue 5 times here. Listen, Ohio State is going to be a playoff team. Ohio State is still going to be good. And I think that needs to be said first and foremost here. However, you lost both coordinators. You lost your top 2 sack guys. You lost your top 2 running backs. You lost Emeka Egbuka. You're bringing in the pencil, Matt Patricia, to be your defensive coordinator. How the hell is he going to translate to coaching college kids? Because we saw him as a head coach, and that was an abject disaster. Now, Ryan Day runs a great ship at Ohio State, obviously. And Caleb Downs is still there, might be the best all-around pound-for-pound college football player in the country. But I think this premonition here that Ohio State is going back-to-back is ridiculous. I'll say this about what I'm saying about Julian Sayin, their starting quarterback. He was an Alabama commit, and when Saban retired, he transferred. So the potential for him to be big time there is obviously the ceiling is the roof, if you will, to quote Michael Jordan. And when you have Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver, that fixes a lot of your problems. I don't think Ohio State is going back to back, and I think we're kind of overrating Ohio State, like another team we're about to talk about when we get to the SEC, because of their name, which is understandable. I do think they'll be a playoff team, but I think you've got to kind of take some caution here with Ohio State, especially early, obviously, as we know, because they open in our first Big Mac Friday night preview with Texas next week. So I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that game, obviously, because it's Ohio State and Texas. But I think Ohio State's coming in massively overrated as we start this season. Let's go to conference champions and playoff teams. We'll start in the middle with TJ.
So I agree with you. I think Ohio State's a playoff team. I think that they're with their skilled players, they are going to still be in the mix at the end. They'll somehow get into the playoff. I think that Oregon also gets in the playoff this year. What's a down year for Oregon? 11 wins?
Yeah.
10 wins? Like, I would take 9 wins for my team every season and call that a success. So, but I think they're going to get in the playoff. I think you're going to see a repeat of the Big 77 championship game, but I think that's going to go the other way this year. I think this is the year, and I know everybody says James Franklin is 4-20 against top 10 teams. And that is a huge issue, but they're bringing everybody back nearly. This team is experienced. They know what it takes to win. They've had a taste of it. They got almost all the way last year. I love Penn State this year.
DJ, do you have any parting words before we send you off here?
I'm just going to say this as far as the SEC goes. The entire state of Texas is overrated.
Uh-oh. Of course you say that before you're going to duck out here, so the shrapnel comes our way. Don't worry. I've got all of TJ's picks in front of me. T, we'll talk to you later on Tuesday
All right,
night.
boys.
Team.
Sounds good.
All right. Now that that's done, and he left us with that glorious piece of shrapnel to deal with. 3 teams go to the playoffs, Mac, out of this conference for me, and they're the 3 obvious ones. It's Ohio State, it's Penn State, and it's your conference champion, the Oregon Ducks. Dan Lanning's lost 6 games in 3 years at Oregon. And I think the most impressive thing that Dan Lanning's going to, and here come all the Ohio State fans, I'm sure. And feel free, come after it. You know, if you want to jump in the comments, Ohio State fans, go for it. The only loss he had last year was when they were undefeated and Ohio State kicked the living shit out of them and advanced in the playoff. But Dan Lanning's lost 3 games, 2 games, and 1 game. Dante Moore had a decent year as a true freshman quarterback. He's in the Oregon system, which has obviously produced a lot. They return a decent amount of their all-conference core players next year. 2 on defense, 3 on defense, and 1 on the offensive line. And I really do think Dante Moore is going to have a big year there. So I've got Penn State, Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon winning the conference. And that leaves us, Vegas Mac, to the SEC, where it just means more everybody's favorite conference to call overrated, a conference that attracts a lot of attention regardless of what the situation is. And I'll start here with T's team that could surprise in the SEC since he's gone, so we can kind of talk about it a little bit. And he's going with South Carolina, Mac, and his note was Lenora Sellers. He's a playmaker. Nick Harbor at wide receiver, Dylan Stewart. I think there's a lot of people that think Lenora Sellers could be a Heisman Trophy winner for South Carolina. There's a lot of people drinking the South Carolina Kool-Aid, and I think for good reason. So that's his surprise team, Mac, is the South Carolina Gamecocks. Do you have any comments on that before you give me your surprise team?
I can see that. I mean, that's one of those teams that you kind of feel every year that they're going to be there, and they just don't seem to get there. So I mean, I think that's a good surprise team. My surprise team isn't going to surprise anybody, but I still think it's a surprise team, and that's Alabama. Because, well, listen, Alabama didn't make the playoffs last year, right? And I mean, they're not, when people talk about the SEC.
Speaking of Alabama, right
there
on
you
cue.
go. The boys, yes. I mean, here's the deal. When people are talking about the SEC this year, the first name that rolls off their tongue is not Roll Tide. It's Texas, right? Longhorns.
Mm-hmm.
Be Georgia. So if they're not the first thing that people are talking about, and they're not the second, that means they're a surprise. And I mean, Alabama is as good a team that's out there. Their defense is going to be one of the tops in the country. I think they're gonna get back into the playoffs. So for me, they're a surprise team because they haven't really been. They've kind of been on the talk of a national championship the last couple of years, but let's be honest, not really. Right? Not really there. So yeah, they're a surprise team this year.
Yeah, I know, and I totally agree with you. And I think one thing, Kalen DeBoer was kind of catching some shrapnel last year, and anytime you're the head coach at Alabama, you're gonna do that. People that weren't familiar with KDB before he got to Alabama, all this dude has done is won. But one of the reasons that Washington was so good with Kalen DeBoer leading the charge was their offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, who has since been fired by the Seahawks and is now back with Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. And I think that's going to go a long way, especially for a first-year starter in Ty Simpson. But, Caden Proctor is one of the best offensive linemen in the entire country. So I can definitely see how you're classifying them as a surprise, because I think what happened last year is what a lot of people are expecting from Alabama. When you look at that offense, is Tyler Simpson Jalen Milroe? No, but can he run? Yes, he can. And when you've got Ryan Williams, who arguably is the best wide receiver in the country, and you've got Jeremy Bernard, even with no Jam Miller in week 1 against Florida State, everybody's freaking out. It's Alabama. And I'm going to drop this in here from our guys at the Herb and Raj podcast, because this is a great point right here. And I think it echoes exactly what you were just saying. They still won 9 games. A lot of guys, that gets you an extension. At Alabama, it's like, well, is this the right guy for the fit? That's exactly the point with Alabama and how you're classifying them as a surprise team. My surprise team is not going to surprise you, and you can call me a homer all you want, but I think there's good value here to classify this. And there is a caveat, but my surprise team that could surprise in the SEC is Florida. Their schedule is set up for a huge year if they can get through it, because it is the second toughest schedule in the country. The Gators were 6-0 last year when DJ Lagway started. Now, can they keep DJ Lagway healthy is a big, big question mark. 2 offensive linemen on the preseason first team, for whatever that's worth to you. And then they returned Jaden Baugh, Jacoby Jackson, 14 touchdowns, 1,182 yards. The wide receivers for the Gators, I think, is where the Gators are going to catch some people here. Not only is with Lagway being as talented as he is, but you've got Michael Sturdivant, you've got Eugene Wilson back, Dallas Wilson, very highly touted freshman in there. The schedule is set up, if the Gators are able to get through it, this is a team that can make the college football playoff. But a lot of it hinges on DJ Lagway being healthy for the entire season. So call me a homer, you know, and here's another point too, to just slow my momentum, but it's true. DJ Lagway's already banged up, and that's my thing. With their schedule this year, they're going to have to upset a couple of people, and Lagway's talented enough to do that, but he's got to stay on the field because they were a completely different team when he wasn't. All right, let's look at overrated teams. I don't have a whole lot of context here, Mac, but as TJ said, his overrated team was the entire state of Texas. You know, I appreciate that, guys. I try and be fair. I mean, it could be, I could be looking at a no bowl year again, or I could be looking at a college football playoff team.
Hey, Mike, here's the thing. The thing about the schedule for Florida, let's talk about it just for a second. It's they don't have, like, I don't mean an off week, like, and not that they're a bye week. It's like week after week. I mean, some of these teams have, you throw in a weak link. There isn't a weak link to Florida's schedule. It's week after week, and like you said, you get banged up a little bit, you have an injury, and you don't have kind of like that easy week. It makes it difficult. It grinds on you.
Yeah, and for all accounts and purposes, Florida should be 2-0 when they travel to Death Valley to take on LSU. That's the 3-game stretch I think you're going to really find out who Florida is and if Lagway can stay healthy, because it's at LSU. It's at fucking Miami. Don't get me started on Miami. And then they are home for Texas this year. And I will say this before I give you my overrated team in the conference, which is Texas. But there's a catch to that. Texas put it on them last year. And that was right before Lagway was really kind of given the keys all the way through. I think Graham Mertz did a tremendous job mentoring DJ Lagway, and that's going to go a long way also. But they play Texas at home. That's a 3-week stretch where you're going to know if Florida's a factor or not. My overrated team is Texas. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say Texas is a bad football team. Herb and Raj will, but they didn't say they were a bad football team. Very overrated. I think the thing with Texas, though, is Arch Manning has thrown 95 passes in his career. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that because his last name is Manning. He's thrown 95 passes. Like, now it's his first full-time year as a starter. Obviously, it sounds like he is entrenched there and has no intention to leave after this year. Obviously, the success of Texas this season, I think, will dictate that. Seems to have his head screwed on straight, and from that family, of course, you're going to have a high acumen on a football field. We've seen little pockets of what Arch can do, but I think this, and you've seen it scrolling on the bottom of the screen during this whole show here, Texas is the odds-on favorite to win the national title because they have a quarterback named Manning. And I think we have to properly context this, that quarterback named Manning has only thrown 95 passes and is going to be a full-time starter for the first time this year. So I think saying that they're the odds-on favorite to win the national title is putting the Longhorn before the cart, if you will. Obviously, they open at Ohio State, and then they've got a stretch where they play San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston before they go to Florida. They play at Georgia in November. They play Texas A&M at home at the end of the season. So I'm going to call them overrated, but I'm not going to say they're going to miss the playoffs. Give me your overrated team in the SEC.
I'm in the same kind of boat. I mean, I'm saying overrated. I'm going with Georgia. I think Georgia has a lot of holes to fill. They beat Texas twice last year, but I don't know if it was just the way, just in watching Georgia last year, but I'm not going to say they snuck out a couple of games, but it feels like they kind of snuck out a couple of games last year. I mean, and again, good teams will do that. All the power to them. New quarterback this year for them. I mean, he's replacing Beck. I mean,
Gunnar Stockton.
Yeah, I was going to say Gunnar Stockton. And Nate Frazier, running back, he's really good. I mean, he could be really, really good. I mean, he could be Heisman good. But I just think there's too many holes. And last year, Georgia had a ton of injuries. Because they're Georgia, they were able to fill those holes, all those injuries, because they have the depth to do it. But I just think they're going to take a step back. And again, it's one of those things like we're talking about. Taking a step back still might be 9 wins, maybe 10, they still might make the playoffs. But I don't think when I looked at this in this conference, I don't again consider them a national champion contender. I don't. I mean, look what they did in the playoffs last year. Again, once they got to, and again, they won the conference. Everybody thinks last year the SEC had a down year. Let's just be honest. That there's like a little tally mark there with this whole conference. Everybody thinks that the SEC had a down year last year, and Georgia won in a down year. So we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, I mean, I'll take my team with a down year with 10 or 11 wins, but I do think that they're a little overrated.
Yeah, and if you listen to Nick Saban talk about Gunnar Stockton, he'll tell you he's been a winner at every level. And I think that, again, we're putting a lot of pressure on somebody. Yeah, that's a great point there. I mean, they weren't a good team last year, and they still won the SEC. So that shows you what Kirby can do. And I think that's kind of why Georgia's always a wild card, because of Kirby. And, again, Gunnar Stockton, kind of the same as Arch Manning. I mean, we haven't seen this kid be a full-time starter yet. I understand that he's won at every level, but every level prior to college football is not the SEC. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on there. All right, let's go to our conference champion picks and our playoff teams out of the conference. I'll give you T's since he's gone, and then I'll go to you, Mac. T's got Texas, Georgia, and Alabama making the playoff, and he's got LSU as his conference champion. LSU is probably going to come up again before the end of the show here. Go ahead and give me your conference champion pick and your playoff teams out of the SEC.
I can definitely see Georgia. I can see Texas making the playoffs. Like you said, if Florida could get through that gauntlet, I mean, they could be a playoff team as well. But my conference champion I'm going with is Alabama. I think this is going to be a year that Alabama is going to turn it around. They didn't play as good a football as they could last year. They made a lot of mistakes that we don't see an Alabama team make. And I think that's going to change this year. I think Alabama is going to be a tough out come playoff time.
Are you going with one playoff team out of the SEC?
What's that?
You're only going with one playoff team?
I think. I've got Alabama to win the conference. I think Texas and Georgia are definitely in the mix to get in.
All right.
Sweet.
There you go. Mac is a sports t-shirt collector, guys. So he will never say no to a t-shirt. Here we go. Monty, the HVAC guy, first time, long time. Checking in for the first time. Appreciate you, Monty. I'm gonna go. This is gonna piss a lot of people off, and I don't care. I've got 5 teams making the college football playoff out of the SEC. 5. Ready for them?
Shoot, go.
I've got Texas, Georgia, LSU, Alabama is your SEC champs, and we've got the Florida Gators, I think, sneak into the last spot. And I will say this, again, I will do that. I will text you right after the show. I think, okay, now you're screwing with me. No, and here's my caveat. Florida would be the 5th team, and I do, and Josh Pate said this the other day, and it really kind of got me thinking. You imagine, let's say Georgia, they have a down year. Gunnar Stockton isn't great. Florida pulls an upset or two. They both get in. Can you imagine? And this is how Josh Pate has it going. Florida hosting Georgia in a first-round college football playoff game in the freaking swamp. Oh, my God. I would probably have to saw off my arm and donate a bunch of stuff and get on that. I've got Florida in, and they barely get in because I think they are going to spring an upset or two this season. I really do like LSU. I love Garrett Nussmeier. I'm drinking the Alabama Kool-Aid because of Kalen DeBoer and having Ryan Grubb back. And I don't think people really understand what DeBoer and Grubb really did together at Washington, because a lot of people that year didn't watch Washington, which is easy to say, until you got to the end of the season and into the playoffs. that Washington offense was special. And now you're talking about Alabama. No knock on Washington, but Washington's not Alabama. And with the playmakers that they have in Alabama and Ryan Grubb back where he belongs in college football, because he was atrocious at the NFL level, I think that's the case. And I will say this, if Florida doesn't get in and they are not the 5th team in the SEC, I think that would then turn me to the Big 12, where I would add a second team from the Big 12. And that's where I think Texas Tech or Arizona State could be in the mix. All right. Now it's time for some Heisman Trophy winners here. TJ had to step out early. TJ's going with Cade Klubnik of Clemson at a plus 900. Again, the wide receiver trio that Klubnik has at Clemson and that offensive line, I think that's a solid pick. Give me your Heisman Trophy winner, Mac. And I know you're probably going to be a little bold with this one.
I'm going to go, and I kind of hinted a little at the beginning, I'm going to go with Isaac Brown of Louisville as my pick.
Wow.
Here's why. I mean, he had a really good freshman year, a little over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. He averaged about 7 yards per run. He's a home run hitter. He's going to be the focal point of that offense. And as I said, I think Louisville could be one of the surprise teams in there. I know TJ was down on Miller Moss, but I'm just saying, I think Brown is going to have a tremendous year. I like Love from Notre Dame as well. I mean, but I think I'm going to go with a running back because I got a feeling again. So hard to pick these, but I wanted to find someone kind of maybe a little bit outside the box, but I like Isaac Brown.
That is outside the box. And, I mean, would be a hell of a payday. So you've got it on record there from Mac. I've got two guys. I've got a dark horse, and I've got a guy that I've been high on for a couple years that I really think is Heisman ready and has Heisman potential. And his team is college football playoff ready and has college football playoff potential. So which one do you want? Do you want the dark horse or do you want my favorite? And they both come from the SEC.
Give me the favorite first because that way I want to be surprised. So kind of warm me up a little bit.
All right. So my favorite is a guy I was, again, high on last year. He stuck it out and has really developed over the last couple of years. And that's Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. He's a plus 900 as well, also with Klubnik. I really, really think that if LSU does go, there you go. There's some backing for you. You're making friends today, Mac.
I'll tell you, I'm on a roll. It's a connection here.
I really think Nussmeier is in a position, if LSU has success, to at least make his way to New York for the Heisman presentation. Now, our boys here think my long shot's going to be Lagway or Sellers, and I'm going to really throw everybody for a loop. My long shot to win the Heisman is Ryan Williams from Alabama. There's a lot of attention that goes to Jeremiah Smith.
On a T-shirt.
No, I don't. You think I want an Alabama T-shirt? I would never be allowed in Gainesville again. I do like Lagway. I do like Sellers. I think DJ is probably one more year before we can consider him arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the country. But I think he is that much of a threat. But I think Ryan Williams, if Alabama, all right. That I would probably wear to do yard work or out by the pool. I don't wear shirts with sleeves. Like I have 3 and I golf in them. But I think Ryan Williams has a massive year if Alabama is what we think they're going to be. And that's a team that's in the mix, not only for the CFP, obviously, but for a national title. Speaking of, it's that time. Let's get to national championship picks. I'm going to have you go last here because I just saw yours and you might blow your microphone out, so you might have to do it twice. I'm going to go with TJ's first. TJ is I believe in Drew Aller. And he's believing in it a long friggin' way because he's got Penn State and LSU in the national championship game. at Hard Rock in Miami on January 20th. Congrats to Miami. Not the University of Miami. I could care less. Congrats to Hard Rock Stadium for hosting a meaningful game in January this year, because they will do that. So he's got Penn State and LSU, and he is believing all the way in the trend of teams that couldn't get over the hump and finally do. He's got Penn State winning the national championship.
From the Conference of Football Champions.
I have Alabama in the national championship game. I believe in Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb and the firepower that they have. Again, the fact that Kalen DeBoer is in his second year, not in his first year, after replacing one of the best, if not the best to ever do it, Nick Saban. Dan Lanning, he lost 3 games his first year. He lost 2 games his second year. He lost 1 game his third year. So the prototypical way I would do this is the O in Oregon stands for undefeated, and Oregon plays Alabama in the national title game, and quack, quack, mother effers, Dan Lanning gets his first of what will be multiple national championships. I've got Oregon over Alabama. We've got a Penn State Clemson pick for, Locked On College. Good show. Check it out. And by the way, those of you that are seeing Herb and Raj up here, and it says Herb and Raj podcast, they do a podcast, and you need to watch that damn thing. And nobody is talking about Oregon this year.
Those guys are great.
Check them out. And guys, I'm not going to speak for you here, but it is Saturday, so does that mean there is a Herb and Raj After Dark tonight? Let us know here. But Vegas Mac, it is time for your national championship pick, and I am going to brace myself for this one.
You know, this is so hard. I mean, there's just so much that we have to consider for this. So I just kind of, as I was looking at this, I was like, okay, who's kind of a surefire thing? And that's my first pick. And I think a surefire thing is Notre Dame. Yeah, I know they got there last year. Like I said, their schedule is going to favor them throughout the entire year. I like what they have defensively. I love, again, their running backs. I think their linebacking core is as good as they've got. Their defensive line goes 8 deep. Yeah, they got some maybe questions at quarterback, but listen, this is a really, really good team, and they're well coached. And so I think Notre Dame makes their way back to the national championship game. And then things never seem to go the way that they're supposed to go. And so that's my second part of this. And so I said I had my fingers crossed that ASU would win their conference.
You're not about to do what I think you're going to do, are you?
Oh, man. You know, and we saw the buildup last year. And, I mean, Kenny was absolutely amazing. And I mean, he had the whole state in a frenzy for the most part. Even down in Tucson, you know, they were in a frenzy for ASU. I know they were. I think ASU is going to find a way to get in. We're going to have a Notre Dame ASU national championship game. And can you imagine, Mike, listen, you've been there, you know, can you imagine Tempe? Can you imagine Tempe if ASU, it may fall off the map. If ASU wins a national championship in football, Tempe may no longer exist, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, if ASU plays for a national championship, I can guarantee you my daughter will be asking me if they can stay up here for the weekend, because we're about as far away from ASU's campus out in my neck of the woods that you can possibly get. So you've got ASU and Notre Dame?
For the absolute fun of it, I really think Notre Dame is going to get there. ASU obviously is a long shot, but I'm picking ASU. I'm picking party time in Tempe. Hey, listen, if it happens, ASU, you got to invite me down. We'll do a show down there. You know,
no, I'm not going down near that shit show.
Because it's going to fall off the face of the earth. Tempe, Arizona would no longer exist. But I'm just telling you, how much can you imagine Kenny after winning a national championship? I mean, that's something that I would like to see.
I love Kenny, but can you imagine Kenny being the guy like, let's go streaking? Like, I could see Kenny doing that down Mill Avenue.
Oh my gosh.
And then they would love it down there.
I'm telling you, if they get to the national champ, they have to devote, like whoever has the game, have to devote a Kenny cam and just have it on him the entire game, pregame, game, post-game, down at Tempe, like, oh my, just a whole channel devoted to Kenny.
There you go. You got our national title picks. TJ, Penn State over LSU. Mac, ASU over Notre Dame. And I've got Oregon over Alabama. Hey, those of you that tune into us, we appreciate you. Everybody that's commented along today, we appreciate you. And again, if you wanna stay on the college football vibe or just be in a vibe tonight, here you go. Our guys over at the Herb and Raj podcast. It is Herb and Raj After Dark, I think is what it's called on Saturdays. Don't shoot me if it's not. 7:30 Central Time. Anybody can tune in, bring a drink, comment along. The guys have a lot of fun on Saturdays. We're in the depths of it. We're in the middle of it right now. This game that's on right now, you are you are missing absolutely nothing. Hey, did you see that comment there?
Well, that may be too, but you know.
You keep talking, you're going to lose your Alabama shirt there.
No. Come on now.
Big week coming up for us next week. We finish our NFL previews Tuesday with the NFC North. That is at 5:30 on the West Coast, 8:30 on the East Coast. Thursday, we finish our NFL previews with the AFC North. That is at 5:30 on the West Coast, 8:30 on the East Coast. And then our NFL season kickoff show, similar style to this, will take place at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, September 3rd. That is the night before the college football or the NFL season kicks off. Next week, we get into week 1 of the college football slate, which has got some really, really, really good games. We'll have those covered for you during the week on our social channels, as well as next Saturday. We are going to take a few days off for the Labor Day weekend before we get into the full slate football grind. And next week, I will tell you about our upcoming schedule for the football season. You're going to get 4 days a week of live content from us, as well as everything else that is going on in the world. Iowa State, Kansas State, in a game that has been absolutely butt ugly from the parts that I've been able to side-eye here. It is 7-7. Iowa State has the ball at midfield, 4:33 to go in the third. So to everybody that was watching along in the comment section, we appreciate you all. Tag your friends, tell your friends. Check out Herb and Raj After Dark tonight on their podcast. Go ahead and go over there and follow the boys for us. They are good dudes. They have a good time. You are going to see them probably a couple of times on this very program. And hey, who knows, if you tune into their show, you might see some of our ugly faces on there here and there. So to everybody behind the scenes, and before I go, a special birthday shout out to a guy that does a lot of stuff when I say everybody behind the scenes on this show. A guy we affectionately refer to as Romeo Bravo. I think it's his 152nd birthday today, so happy birthday to him. Lots of fun stuff. So again, to everybody behind the scenes, to TJ, for Vegas Mac, for everybody out there watching, we appreciate y'all. I'm Mike. We'll talk to you later.